All right, everyone, let's get started. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the returning members and welcome back to our newest member. Today's meeting marks the first of the second installation of the committee. Welcome back, everyone. We're very excited to get going again. Today's meeting is being recorded, so keep in mind that whatever is said today will be recorded and reproduced on the COC's webpage later this afternoon or early tomorrow. My name is Nikesh Patel, and I am the Associate Director of Oversight with the San Francisco Office of Cannabis. Shortly, you will hear from the Director of the OOC, Marissa Rodriguez, and meet members of our team over the course of the committee's meeting today and over the next couple of months. Today, a special thank you to my colleague, Ray Law, who many of you know, who's operating this meeting behind the scenes, and Jet Murphy, a law school student who will be joining us for the summer and will be hosting the slides you see throughout today's meeting. You will also hear from representatives from Resource Development Associates today, many of whom you are familiar with, including John Cerveto, Emma Shivsky, and David Klauber. David will be joining us towards the end of the summer, and we look forward to having him back. Today's meeting is a little bit different than usual because it is the second installation. So first, normally the committee chair would facilitate these meetings. As we work through that process and elect a committee chair and vice chair today, I will be stepping in just for today to move us through the agenda. The second major difference is that today's meeting is the first of the new committee. So we'll be going through introductions, taking care of orientation materials, and also tending to some housekeeping items. With that being said, let's get started. As many of you know, these meetings are a forum for public comment. Please note that all members of the public will have an opportunity to provide public comments throughout the meeting. For general comments, please reserve your comments until the general comment portion, which is also marked on the agenda. And then for any comment relating to the specific agenda item, you'll also have an opportunity to weigh in during that item. I will indicate as much, and my colleague Ray Law will also let you know when it's the appropriate time to speak. Please note, though, that for the specific comments, your comments do have to be limited to that particular agenda item, so we appreciate that in advance. And Ray, like I mentioned, will provide instructions for how to participate. You'll have two options, either by calling in or submitting a chat. All right, so with that out of the way, let's get the meeting started. I would like to call item number 1, roll call. John, will you please take roll call? And John, if you can hear me, this is an excellent time to begin by taking roll call. Ray, would you mind unmuting John's mic?
There we go. Sorry about that. I couldn't find the unmute button on presenter mode. Okay, starting with non-voting members, Chair number 1, Department of Public Health, Mohamed Mali, are you present? Moving on, Chair number 2, Police Department, Trenia Waring or Sergeant Yukio Oshita, are either of you present? Chair number 3, seat number 3, Department of Building Inspection, Edward Sweeney or Patrick O'Riordan. Are you present? Chair number 4, Planning Department, Michael Christensen or Richard Sucre, are you present?
Michael Christensen, I'm present.
Thank you, Michael. Seat number 5, San Francisco Unified School District, Corey Pack, are you present?
No, but I'm Allison Schul. I'm here in her place.
Thank you. Seat number 6, Entertainment Commission, Dylan Rice, Caitlin Azevedo, or Maggie Whalen.
This is Dylan Rice. I'm here.
Seat number 7, the Fire Department, Larry Dean or Alec Balmy. Are you present?
Yeah, I'm present.
Which?
This is Lieutenant Dean. Alec Balmy retired about a year and a half ago.
Okay. Thank you. We'll update our roster. Moving on to voting members. We're just going to go numerical order. Seat number 8, owner of a cannabis business permitted through the equity program, Ali Jamalian. Are you present?
Present.
Seat number 9, operator of cultivation, manufacturing, or distribution business with fewer than 20 employees, Aaron Flynn. Are you present?
Present.
Seat number 10, representative of organized labor who works with cannabis delivery service labor force, Doug Bloch. Are you, oh, I'm sorry, Jessica Cry. Are you present?
Yeah, and it's for retail labor, not delivery for seat 10.
Thank you. Sorry, I got my wires crossed going through the list. So just for the record, Jessica Cry is for seat 10 and representative of organized labor who works with the cannabis business labor force. Seat 11, representative of organized labor who works with cannabis delivery service labor force, Doug Bloch. Are you present?
It's Block, and yes, present. Doug Block.
Thank you, Doug, and I apologize for the mispronunciation. Seat 12, owner of a storefront cannabis retailer, Sean Richard. Are you present?
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you. Seat 13, equity applicant, Leah Nina Parks. Waits.
Present.
Present. Seat 14, subject matter expertise in state law and regulations, Brendan Allanan. Are you present?
Present.
Thank you. Seat 15, experience in workforce and economic development, Teresa Foglio.
Teresa Foglio Ramirez, and I'm present.
Thank you. We'll update our roster.
Thank you.
And seat 16, medical MCD patient or medical cannabis patient or involvement in running a cannabis compassionate use program. I apologize if I don't get this name right. Also, Sarah Payan, are you present?
I am present, and Pan is fine. It's Payan, but you can say Pan. No worries.
Okay, that is our roll call. Thank you all.
John and Nikesh, sorry to interrupt. I see one of the members on the attendee list, and I believe he might be representing the Department of Building Inspection, and let me find out now. Hi, Bill. I just unmute you. This is Ray Law from the Office of Cannabis. Are you representing DBI?
I am. Thank you, Ray.
You are very welcome, and nice to see you. I am going to make you the panelist.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Appreciate that very much. With roll call taken, we will close item 1 and move to item 2, which is for members of the committee. Please take a few minutes just to review the agenda for approval. I'll check back with you in a minute, and then we'll open up for public comment. And once we've gone through public comment, we'll vote to approve the minutes or the meeting agenda. So just a moment, I'll check back with you. Please take a look at the agenda and see if there's anything that you would like to have amended for today's meeting. Thank you. Right, does anyone else need a little bit more time to review the agenda? All right, not hearing anything, we will open it up to public comment. Ray, if you could just walk through folks how to participate. And for anyone who is viewing the meeting, the instructions are also on your screen right now. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Just a couple minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikesh. For members from the general public, if you want to provide public comment, there are 2 ways to do that. If you join this meeting by computer, you can either put your question or comment in the chat function. And if you are joining by phone, you can dial 1-415-655 0001, and then input the access code, which is 187-983-9993, and then press star free when prompted to do that. And when we get to your public comment, you will be unmute, and everyone will have 2 minutes to provide the public comment. Nikesh, I just checked the attendee list. Right now, we have no one waiting in the queue to provide public comment. That is also true for written comment.
Great, thank you, Ray. We'll give it maybe another 10 seconds. If nothing rolls in, then John, I will ask you to, well, I'll actually invite members of the committee to make a motion one way or the other. Once it's seconded, we can put it to a vote. All right, so with no one in the queue, is there anyone of the committee members who motions to approve the meeting agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nikesh. Sorry to interrupt. I think we might get a comment in the chat, and I am going to read that comment now. My name is Rainer Jackson, a verified equity applicant. I am requesting time in the agenda for equity participants to share the experiences of the cannabis grant program. That concludes the comment.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you for the comment. With that being said, is there any one of the committee members who motions to adopt the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. And with the second, John, please go ahead and take a formal vote.
Quick question. Can I actually make a motion to be able to add some time, like at the end of public comment, to accommodate Raina's request so that there's room for some feedback from the community in that regard, specifically in regards to the grant program?
Thank you, Member Parks. If there's a second to that motion, then we can put it to a vote as well.
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you, committee members. And with that, is there anything else that anyone else would like to add before we vote?
Would general public comment at the end be an appropriate place for those, or?
That's right.
That's number 9.
That's right, committee member Cry. It would be an appropriate time during public comment to provide some of those remarks about the equity experience. All right, so with both items being seconded, John, please go ahead and take the vote.
Okay, vote to approve the agenda as amended. Going in numerical order, seat 8, Ali Jamalian, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 9, Aaron Flynn, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 10, Jessica Cry, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 11, Doug Block, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 12, Sean Richard, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 13, Nina Parks, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 14, Brendan Hallinan, how do you your vote?
Aye.
Seat 15, Teresa Foglio Ramirez or Rodriguez. I'm sorry if I got that. How do you vote?
Aye, Ramirez.
Ramirez, okay. And seat 16, Sarah Payan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, so motion carries unanimously with eight ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions.
John. And with that, we'll close item 2, moving on to item 3. At this time, I'd like to call Director of the Office of Cannabis, Marissa Rodriguez, to provide opening remarks to welcome the newest members and the returning members of the Cannabis Oversight Committee. With that, Director Rodriguez, I turn the floor over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I want to thank John. I know it's your first time facilitating the meeting. Thank you so much for being here, and especially last minute. I know there are some changes with staffing in your office. So thanks again. Marissa Rodriguez, Director of the Office of Cannabis. So nice to see everyone. And I know with the pandemic almost behind us here in San Francisco, things are starting to feel like we're getting back to normal. Things are opening up. Really happy to have all of you back again and back to business. We have a lot of work we need to certainly get done. And of course, the momentum was incredible last year with the committee. I want to congratulate our returning and new members to the Oversight Committee. I know that Supervisor Chan really wanted to be here and make remarks as well as do the oath of office for all of you. But unfortunately, scheduling conflicts didn't allow that, but she just wanted to make sure all of you knew. And I do want to take this time to recap some of the great work the Oversight Committee did last year. Lots of work, and it's really impressive. And I also want to thank everyone who came out to be a part of this committee. I think that says a lot about what we've created here with the San Francisco industry, and a lot to celebrate. So last year we issued over eight legislative recommendations, voted on core recommendations instrumental to shaping decisions around the distribution of grant funding to our equity applicants and technical assistance providers. We pivoted to be inclusive and accessible during the pandemic with our virtual meetings. We hosted trainings on labor regulations and requirements. We issued numerous formal letters in response to proposed legislation. We convened 8 public meetings and created a valuable space for members of the public and local city representatives to meet, be transparent, hear from each other, and collectively steer the direction of cannabis in San Francisco. We convened city representatives to present and provide updates regarding their department's involvement in the cannabis permit application process. And I know there's a lot more to be done, but very happy that we're here and we can get the ball rolling and start the conversations. There's a lot of things that we need to discuss today. So with that, I'm going to administer your oath of office. But before that, I want you to know we're going to have to do this collectively, which means there's going to be some ambient noise, there may be an echo, but we're all going to speak together. I'll obviously state the first lines, you'll repeat after me. Just so you know, everyone here is a member of the Cannabis Oversight Committee, the Cannabis Oversight Committee. So when you state the name of the office, that is what you'll state. And if you will unmute yourself, I don't know, Nikesh, if there's anything else you want to add before I administer the oath.
That sounds great. Well covered. Everyone, just know that you'll be talking over each other. That's okay, but only for this portion of the meeting.
So I'll state the first line. You'll repeat after me. I'm going to state it again with you just in case you didn't hear it the first time, but we'll do that. We'll take it in turn throughout the oath. And we will start now. I state your name. You solemnly swear.
I, Teresa Foglio Ramirez,
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support
and defend
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
And the
Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies,
foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any
reservation.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. And that I will well
and
faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties I am about to enter.
faithfully.
during such time as I hold the office of Cannabis Oversight Committee member.
during such time
Such time as I hold the office of Cannabis Oversight
Committee member.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank
That was
you. Thank you,
well done.
everyone. Thank you,
We're not
Marissa.
going to be tested on
Director
that later,
Rodriguez.
will we, Marissa?
We
And
will.
I am going to unmute.
Hope we
everyone.
don't see ourselves on John Oliver.
That was well done. Well done, everyone. At this point, thank you for that. Thank you, Director Rodriguez, for the opening remarks and for administering the oath of office. At this time, we'll move to public comment. Ray, if you could just go ahead and let folks know how best to participate, that'd be great.
Thanks, Nikesh. For members of the general public, if you want to provide public comment, there are two ways for you to do that. If you join that by computer, you can put your comment in the chat function. If you are joined by phone, you can dial 1-415-655-0001 and then input the access code, which is 187-983-9993. And then you can press *3 when prompted to do so, and we will unmute you when you are up to speak. And let me check if there's any comment in the queue. Nikesh, as of now, there's no one waiting in the queue to speak.
Thank you, Ray. Let's just give it another maybe 10, 15 seconds, see if anyone's filtering in.
Nikesh, at this time, I see one individual waiting to speak, and I'm going to unmute this individual now. Good afternoon, caller. You are up to speak, and you have 2 minutes. Please proceed.
Hello. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I am Charlie Pappas. I am a candidate for a new permit. I was in dispensary from 2005 to 2013, Divinity Tree. My comments, I want to get the previous agenda item. I've submitted this to you before. I would like to see minutes submitted for the previous meetings before you approve, the agenda, and that hasn't been the case. So, and I want to just welcome you all and appreciate your being, wanting to take the mantle up and make cannabis distribution better in San Francisco. Thanks very much.
Thank you, caller. And Nikesh, I am moving on to the second one in the queue. Hello, caller. You are up to speak, and you have 2 minutes. Please proceed.
Is that me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, yeah, this is Langford Brown. Basically, I'm just trying to get a read on moving forward. How can we, as equity people who have been given a grant, move forward without having this outside funding? Were you able to hear me?
Yes. Anything else you want to add, Langford?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get some clarity here. It's been a 5-week wait, since I've exhausted that first advancement, and I'm unable to move forward. And I'm still waiting to hear from, someone as to how can I move forward without outside funding. I was told that you guys were going to amend these restrictions to make it easier for us to get the funding.
Thank you for your comment, Langford.
And Ray, this is just a good time to remind everyone that because of meeting rules, when someone provides a comment, committee members are not permitted to directly respond to those comments. So for anyone who has provided a comment in the form of a question, please do understand that as much as we'd love to respond, that's not permitted under rules, but we are hearing the comments and we will take them into consideration indirectly when there's a conversation at a later point. So thank you very much for your participation and those comments. Ray, is there anyone else in the queue?
Yes, we do. And we are going to move on to the next speaker. Hello, caller. You're up to speak and you have 2 minutes.
Oh, hello. My name is Darius Kemp. I am the head of equity and community change at EASE. I just wanted to congratulate the new members of the board. And also I wanted to say that I'm excited to work with all of the board, all the advisory committee members moving forward into 2021 and 2022 to make sure that we do the best that we can to make sure San Francisco has a great cannabis, legal, lawful cannabis industry, and then also to support social equity applicants and businesses and the incubators that support them. That is one of my main goals at EASE, is I oversee our social equity programs and work, and I'm very excited about the work we're doing, and I'm also very excited to continue working with Marissa, her team, and the oversight committee to make sure that we grow San Francisco's industry as best as we can moving forward. So I just wanted to thank you all for doing all the hard work, and excited to work with you moving forward.
Thank you for your comment. And we will move on to the next speaker. Hello, caller. You're up to speak and you have 2 minutes. Please proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Johnny Delaplane. I am the president of the San Francisco Cannabis Retailers Alliance. Welcome to all of the new members of the Cannabis Oversight Committee. Congratulations on your appointment. I'm calling to just flag a couple things and ask the committee if they can take positions. The first thing is to take a position on permanently lowering the cannabis gross receipts tax. I believe this is something the entire industry is aligned from, and we need to direct the supervisors as quickly as possible to lock in a lower tax, because it's subject to go up next year that will detrimentally impact our entire industry. The second thing I would like the Cannabis Oversight Committee, to consider is enhanced security protocols in the amending of the planning codes so cannabis businesses that have been targeted for lootings and all of the crimes and targeted robberies in the civil unrest last May can install roll down doors and other security measures not in violation of the planning code. I know the mayor's office is considering some planning code cleanup, so I think that's another non-controversial item that the Cannabis Oversight Committee can perhaps recommend on today. I'm not quite sure of your procedures. And the final thing I'd like to talk about is Police Code Section 1608C5. That is the prohibition of transfer of greater than 50% ownership of your cannabis business for 10 years. The new legislation has reduced that to 5 years. We are putting together a coalition of industry groups that are going to ask to reduce that to 2 years. I don't know if the Cannabis Oversight Committee can take that position as well, but in the next week or two here, I expect to have a letter that different groups can support on, and I'm not familiar with kind of Brown Act restrictions of the Cannabis Oversight Committee, or how you can work with groups like the San Francisco Cannabis Retailers Alliance or CMAC or the Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, to take positions on various points of the upcoming legislation. So taxes first, security features second, and the transfer of ownership of greater than 50% third. So thank you all and welcome, and appreciate your service.
Ray, I believe you may be on mute.
Thank you, Nikesh. As of now, we do not have other members from the public are waiting to speak, but we do have 2 written comments submitted as of now, and I'm going to go through them Here is the first written comment. Many equity applicants would like OOC to report on critical items like the exact amount of funds received, budget allocations for reimbursement versus advancement, and funds disbursed to date. The second written comment reads, can you guys give grants to help build equity businesses? Grants that actually going directly to us and not grants that are actually loans that we have to give back. And then the second part of the second written comment reads, there are city fund consultants that pocket the money you guys are granting them to help us, quote unquote. But as soon as they see we are not using our equity to supply their business, they don't stop. And apparently there is the third part of this public comment that reads, you better off giving that money to real, my apologies. Looks like we have another written comment just pops up. And the rest of the third written public comment reads, you better off giving that money to real equity applicants that have aspirations to start their business. That concludes the second written comment. And the last public comment is reads, please answer these questions for me as part of public comment. When did they get their grant award? How much money has been given by the grant? What other money has been given to your office overall? What is the overall grant / reimbursement funding? Please give a timeline for that. That concludes the written comment. But before I turn it back to you, Nikesh, this is a reminder for members from the general public who is going to submit their public comment through the chat. When you do that, please submit a complete public written comment as one entry. That would be easier for us to convey your public comment to the members of the Oversight Committee. With that, that concludes the public comment section.
Thank you, Ray. And with that, we will now close item number 3 and move to agenda item number 4. At this time, all members of the committee will have an opportunity to introduce themselves. We will start with seat 1 and then move sequentially to seat 16. But before we start that process, because of timing constraints, we'd like to have Deputy City Attorney Sarah Crowley, if she is on this call, to introduce herself first. She will explain her role with the committee. And actually, I'm just getting a text message from Sarah. She's having some difficulty logging on. So why don't we do this? Let's start with seat 1. And I understand that some members may not be present. So if that's the case, then we'll just keep moving down the line. To the members who are present, please introduce yourself, the department or the interest that you represent, and what you hope to accomplish through the committee, maybe some areas that you're particularly interested in. This is a great opportunity to introduce yourselves to members of the public who are watching. I'm sure they'd love to know more about you. So with that, I hand it off to seat 1, and if seat 1 is not present, then the occupant of seat 2, and so on. Thanks so much. And actually, with that, I just got a message from Sarah that she is now available. So Sarah, if you can hear this, please go ahead and introduce yourself. I know you have some timing constraints, and then once you're done, we'll move to the members. Thanks so much. And Ray, if you could unmute Sarah's line, that would be great.
Hi, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. I just wanted to quickly pop in and introduce myself. My name is Sarah Crowley. I know some of you already, but I'm the Deputy City Attorney that advises the Office of Cannabis and also the Cannabis Oversight Committee. So I just wanted to show my face and let you all know that if you have any questions or issues you'd like advice on, you should feel free to reach out to me directly or through the Office of Cannabis, whichever is easier.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And we will provide some contact information that can be helpful if you have any legal questions regarding the committee and what it can and can't do. So thank you so much, Sarah. And we will let you get on to your work. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikesh.
All right, so with that, John, can you actually go through the roster and identify the first seat members, see if they're here? If they are, give them an opportunity to present. If they're not, then move to seat 2 and so on and so on. Thank you, John.
Yeah, no problem. So seat 1 is Department of Public Health, Mohaned Mali. He was not here at roll call, so I'm going to move on to seat 2. The Police Department, Trenya Waring or Sergeant Yukio Oshita. They were also not here during roll call, so let's move on to Department of Building Inspection. And actually, Nikesh, I think who is here is not on my roster. So if you can, I don't know what.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, John. I believe Bill Strong is representing the Department of Building Inspection.
Bill Strong.
Yeah, Bill Strong. Right. Thank you, Ray. Yeah, representing DBI. Ed Sweeney, who was the former deputy director for inspection services, has also now retired. We have an acting deputy director, Joe Duffy, and our chief inspector for building inspection, Mauricio Hernandez. Those are probably the 2 key people at DBI who will be interfacing with the committee as time moves on this year. But I'm happy to represent the department today and certainly to convey any questions that members of the committee may have back to the department for any updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to seat number 4 for the Planning Department, Michael Christensen.
Hi, this is Michael Christensen, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. Having some technical difficulties today, so I won't be sharing video. Been our cannabis liaison for about 4 years now, so happy to continue on and assist in any way that I can, and happy to answer any questions. And city planning, for context for anyone who doesn't know, is the department that has discretionary authority over the location of all businesses in the city and county of San Francisco. So we're the ones who decide whether specific businesses are appropriate at any locations in San Francisco, and also the physical design.
Okay, thank you. Seat number 5 for the San Francisco Unified School District. And I believe there was someone filling in today, and I did not get your name in the rec on my roster.
Hi, that's okay. I'm Allison Schul, and I'm here for Corey Pack. I am here representing SFUSD. I'm with the School Health Department, which is our School, Family, and Community Department. So as a non-voting member, this is my first time here, mostly listening, but we are here representing all the families and students in our public schools.
Thank you. For seat number 6, Entertainment Commission, Dylan Rice.
Hello, I'm trying to get my video going here. You can see me now. Hi, I'm Dylan Rice. I'm a senior analyst at the Entertainment Commission, and I'm here to represent the entertainment and nightlife industry and where that would intersect with the interests of the cannabis industry and regulators. So glad to be here and here for any questions.
Thank you. Seat number 7, Fire Department, Larry Dean.
Yeah, this is Larry Dean, Lieutenant San Francisco Fire Department. We do the along with DBI the construction permits for cannabis facilities, as well as the operational permit needs for cannabis facilities. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the voting members. Seat number 8, owner of a cannabis business permitted through the equity program, Ali Jamalian.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ali Jamalian. I'm the owner and founder of Sunset Connect. It's a SF brand that pays homage to Muni. I represent Seed 8 and am operator of a manufacturing and distribution business through the social equity program. I'm a local industry veteran, hold SF's first equity manufacturing and distribution license. The business is owned 100% by myself, and I'm currently working on a cultivation project that was recently approved by planning with another group of partners. I've been supplying SF dispensaries for about a decade, and I was affected directly by the war on drugs when I was arrested, charged, paroled by the federal government here in the Presidio. This caused me to have to drop out of college, and it is my goal to fulfill the intended purpose of this committee, which is to create a local workforce, lower the barriers for those that were impacted by the war on drugs, foster small business ownership, and ensure that our equity program and industry as a whole is a success. Those of you that know me know that that's a pretty dear cause to me. Having navigated the building department and the planning department and understanding the industry processes and best practices as well, I feel I can bring those recommendations to the committee and by extension to the OOC, Board of Supervisors, and the Mayor's office. Therefore, I really hope that we can continue the work that we've been doing and shape legislation and make it an all-inclusive industry for all of us here in San Francisco. Thank you.
Seat number 9, operator of a cultivation, manufacturing, or distribution business with fewer than 20 employees, Aaron Flynn.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aaron Flynn. I know many of you and look forward to meeting those of you that I don't. I've been operating in San Francisco since 2010 and currently am the CEO and co-founder of Gold Seal San Francisco. Gold Seal holds a cultivation license, 10,000 square foot facility in the Bayview, as well as a distribution license, 4,000 square foot facility also in the Bayview, where we cultivate flower and distribute Gold Seal brand, as well as a handful of other veteran and equity brands. We also provide co-packing services for a number of local brands. Yeah, have a deep experience in getting small cannabis business permitted in San Francisco and everything that entails. And have been dealing with San Francisco dispensaries for some time, and really look forward to continuing to represent the non-retail side of the cannabis industry. When we first started this process way back in 2015, there was not a real sense of how many producers there were in San Francisco, and I'm proud to say that we've been able to advocate to really, showcase that there are a lot of great products that are produced right here in San Francisco. Even though it is expensive to do so, there's a lot of value in that, and want to continue to represent that side of the community as best I can. Thank you for having me.
Seat number 11, a representative of organized labor who works with cannabis delivery service. Who works with the cannabis business labor force, Jessica Cry.
Hi, Jessica Cry. I'm seat number 10. I'm Jessica Cry. I'm from United Student Commercial Workers Local 5. We represent all kinds of workers. I specifically represent and organize cannabis workers from as high up to the Oregon border and all the way down to Monterey. Also represent workers in San Francisco. I first got involved in the cannabis community very young through the traditional market. Have been living in San Francisco for over 10, 11 years. Worked in the medical shops, bartending, receptionist, buyers, supervisorial, and management roles. Have worked at a few shops in San Francisco, and now I'm happy to say that I get to represent workers here. Looking forward to our continued work here and to making sure that we continue to do the work to make sure that workers are in a safe, healthy environment, especially with this pandemic that just happened, and us being sure that our work is essential and that people continue to work. Looking forward to uplift those voices and continue to do the good work that we have and continue on with those recommendations we made in December. Thanks.
Seat 11, representative of organized labor who works with Cannabis Delivery Service Labor Force, Doug Block.
Thank you, Doug Block with Teamsters Joint Council 7. Very happy to be returning to this committee. My union represents more than 100,000 workers from Bakersfield up to the Oregon border. This is Joint Council 7 in Reno and Northern Nevada. And in the cannabis space, we do represent delivery drivers, but also retail and manufacturing and different workers, much like the United Food and Commercial Workers. Teamsters are primarily a transportation union. You see our largest employer every day, UPS. We have over 12,000 members who live in the city and county of San Francisco, and the joke about us is we're the A to Z union because we represent everybody from airline mechanics to zookeepers in San Francisco. But we pick up your garbage and recycling at Recology. Hopefully your car is not getting towed by auto return, which are Teamsters. We have paratransit drivers, bus drivers, city and county of San Francisco employees. We work at Moscone Center. We're in the hotels, the front desk clerks. Basically, we're everywhere and delivering food, beer, liquor, beverages, everything's getting delivered by Teamsters in and out of San Francisco. As for my own personal involvement, I worked with Supervisor Fewer on the legislation that enabled the creation of this committee and worked with our now Attorney General Rob Bonta at the time in the legislature on the legislation that legalized many parts of this industry, which I'm happy to say. And the Teamsters' interest and my personal interest is in improving the wages and working conditions and power of workers in this industry, and making sure that legitimate employers get all the help that they need so that they can succeed. Because if you're not succeeding, there's no way that the workers can as well. Thank you.
Seat number 12, owner of a storefront cannabis retailer, Sean Richard.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be appointed back to this committee. A lot of work was undone, and we need to continue this work and push forward. Sean Richard, born and raised in San Francisco my whole entire life, 53 years. I don't look it, but thank you. I didn't put that out there. My whole entire life, lost two brothers to gun violence, started an organization called Brothers Against Guns, and countless young men that was in my program I have saved and sent to college, and some I have lost to gun violence, and just more recently, my little cousin to gun violence. So being affected by the war on drugs, been to prison, came home and opened up a little small clothing retail store, and one of the first members of the Omega Boys Club. When it just first started, it was 8 of us, and traveled all over the country promoting peace and letting people know about, the violence that occurred in San Francisco and how we changed our lives. Being involved in illegal activities, and I wouldn't call it gangs in San Francisco, but involved in some of the violence that occurred in San Francisco. I was raised by a good mother and father who taught me to get rid of that stinking thinking and put that positive living into your life. And had an opportunity through the San Francisco Equity Group, SFEG, to be the first African equity dispensary owner in San Francisco. Let me clarify that, make sure everybody hear me correctly. The first equity, the first Black-owned dispensary, the first equity-owned dispensary, African-American in San Francisco. And I'm very proud of that. I learned a lot over this last year and a half about this whole entire business, the opportunity that affords these young folks that's trying to get into this business. I'm teaching and willing to show them and help them and guide them in the direction on trying to become legit and start their own brand and help them build themselves up so they don't have to look over their shoulders and know that they're doing something positive and they can continue this on, because this is an industry, as I tell everybody, it's an industry that has billions of dollars, not billions, billions of dollars that young folks can get into. And being that I'm an equity partner, I had a talk with Ms. Rodriguez, Director of Office of Cannabis. I said, I don't like the word in the language of being an equity applicant. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I don't like that word. I'm an equity partner because my skin in the game is qualifying to become equity, you know, and so that's where I stand with that as an equity partner. So I think that we have a lot of work to do. I think that we didn't get the opportunity to complete it, and I'm glad that we all came back to the table. I want to see all of us work together, get along. We can disagree, to agree or disagree, and you know we can fuss and fight. But at the end of the day, we want what's best for the community, and the community needs to know that we're fighting. Because if they see that we're not fighting for them, we're bickering and arguing amongst each other, then you know this whole thing is going to blow up. So I want to thank everybody for being on this committee, and you know, and it's an opportunity for us to do some good. And I see the future for this cannabis. You know, once we get the hold of this, can be the leading, you know, sponsorship throughout the nation on this whole equity side of this cannabis. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Director Rodriguez, the cash, and everybody at the host.
Seat 13, equity member Nina Parks.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Nina Parks. Born and raised here in occupied Ohlone territory, also known to you guys as San Francisco, California. I am the daughter of a Filipino settler mother and a Ashkenazi Jewish settler father that came here to San Francisco to participate in the diversity that this city has been so amazing to be able to create. As a youth, you know, I participated in a lot of different activities in regards to things that just led me to be put into a drug rehab for 1.5 years in the mountains of New Mexico. I was given the opportunity to see that there are different ways to be able to approach issues around drugs, as well as what people consider to be deviant activities, mostly through educational opportunities, which eventually led me into case management and after-school programming, which I helped to run a food pantry, as well as provide case management in high schools like Balboa, June Jordan, and Cat, until I was bullied out of, not just me, but our youth center was bullied out of the space by SFPD, which was on in the Excelsior, which eventually turned into a senior program versus a youth program. The PTSD that I acquired from dealing with SFPD for a 6-month basis, you know, led me into doing work to help create the San Francisco the Community Policing General Order of San Francisco, which I helped to organize young folks. We figured if a 15-year-old could understand it, then hopefully the police could. Unfortunately, those provisions were not actually, no one was held accountable to you know, putting that general order into further compliance. But in 2014, my brother was arrested for cannabis, and you know, growing up here, we did miss the opportunity because our public school did not provide the education that we would need to compete in the tech industry that superimposed itself on our beautiful city. And we figured that we were not going to miss out on this opportunity for cannabis, because that's one thing that we definitely knew how to do, is how to sell cannabis. As Prop 64 began to roll out, they had language very specific to felony exclusion. I then joined forces with 4 other women to co-found an organization called Supernova Women, which helped to usher in the first equity program in Oakland. And then we started to provide educational opportunities for the community to be able to understand what does that mean in implementation for them. And then when San Francisco began to talk about it, I made sure that I was present. I also had a delivery service that was already operating in San Francisco. So in order to try to keep going, I kept on fighting over here, and co-founded an organization called the Original Equity Group, which now has filed for a federal certification mark for called the Equity Trade Certification. So we have the opportunity to be able to unify across the country, which I'm a part of coalitions all across the nation that are implementing equity programs, and they're definitely looking at ours. I had the opportunity to serve as the chair of this oversight committee last year, and I would like to continue pushing that forward, pushing our mission forward to make sure that San Francisco does have the most equitable and diverse cannabis program in the nation, and hopefully in the world. So I also have a brand called Gift of Doja. And I work with a Locals Equity Distribution, not to be confused with Locals Distribution. We're 2 different companies, and we all, we help to develop equity brands as well as women and minority brands. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell, and I'm looking forward to serving with you all.
Thank you. Seat 14, subject matter expertise in state laws and regulations, Brendan Hallinan.
Hey, good afternoon, fellow committee members, Director Rodriguez, Office of Cannabis staff members. My name is Brendan Hallinan. I too was born and raised here in San Francisco. I'm excited and happy to be a part of this committee and to participate in city government, particularly related to cannabis, which is something I've been passionate about for a long time, personally and professionally. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law since 2004. After I received my law license, I began representing defendants against state and federal criminal charges in California. I quickly educated myself about federal and state laws, with emphasis on medical cannabis, defenses, and the formation and operation of medical cannabis collectives and cooperatives. Prior to becoming an attorney, I actually owned a small business that developed on-site and general advertising signs around the state and in the city. And in that capacity, I learned a lot of the ins and outs of the permitting process and entitlement process, as well as construction. So when I began practicing cannabis law, I was drawn to working on legalizing the non-conforming medical cannabis dispensaries and the cultivations around the city. That started in about 2005, 2006, and I did that for 15 years. And during that time, I represented hundreds of collectives and cooperatives, patients, growers, manufacturers, dispensaries, in just about every conceivable legal capacity related to their cannabis activities. So I really got a great breadth of experience. A lot of it was being figured out as we went along because there weren't a lot of established laws on the books. So it was a really great experience. And I was also fortunate enough to get the opportunity to work on legislation, both locally and at the state level. Worked with David Chu's office and writing some legislation, statewide legislation. And I'm really looking forward to the legislative work that this committee has in front of it. Like everyone said on here, there's a lot of work to be done. In early 2020, I decided I didn't like the direction that the regulated industry was going towards corporate cannabis. So I actually scaled back my cannabis law practice and now only represent a handful of clients in the cannabis space, consisting of qualified equity partners, which is my new term, Sean, friends and family, and businesses that I've either invested in or participate in the governments of. Someone who's faced the challenges here of opening numerous cannabis businesses over the last 15 years. My motivation in participating in this committee is to bring my experience and practical nature to the group and help find solutions to make SF Cannabis program a success. I want to see small business owners succeed in San Francisco. I know how difficult it is from firsthand experience. I want to see local businesses control the market share, supply chain to retail. I want to help reduce barriers, help the group reduce barriers to entry, to equity, and to promote opportunity and education to our various communities in San Francisco. And in the end, I just want San Francisco to own the best cannabis ecosystem in the country for innovation and culture, and to be the shining star of cannabis around the world. So, thank you.
Seat 15, experience in workforce and economic development, Teresa Foglio Ramirez.
Hello, thank you. Yes, my name is Teresa Foglio Ramirez. My day job is for LIUNA Local 261, where we represent 5,000 workers in San Francisco, 1,000 of which are public sector employees, which I'm the public sector business agent, so representing 1,000 city workers in various capacities, laborers, street cleaners, horticulturists, arborists. In that role, I helped to develop 3 separate public sector apprenticeships, labor, also arborists and horticulturalists. But I am not here in that capacity as for my union, but I am here in the capacity of, I also am on the California State Joint Cannabis Apprenticeship Committee that has 4 separate career pathways in the cannabis industry. My hopes are to provide opportunities in vulnerable communities and for the community at large to have career pathways through state certified apprenticeship into the cannabis industry. But without successful legal operators, we're not going to be able to do that for the workers and for the community. So my hopes is to strengthen San Francisco's cannabis industry, and then also to provide the opportunities for transferable skills through state apprenticeship to the community. Thank you.
Seat 16, medical cannabis patient or medical cannabis or involvement in running a cannabis compassionate use program. Sarah Pan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Pan. I'm seat 16 for the San Francisco Cannabis Oversight Committee. I'm part of the leadership team of the San Francisco Bay Area Americans for Safe Access chapter, and I'm the public education officer for the Apothecarium in San Francisco. For 3 years, I was the vice chair of the San Francisco Cannabis State Legalization Task Force, and I've been in the industry for almost a decade. With over 16,000 hours of experiential medical cannabis patient research, I've lectured to large healthcare organizations such as Kaiser and UCSF. I have led large-scale industry training and lectures nationwide, including continuing education credit classes at accredited schools for healthcare practitioners through my private practice. I've created some of the first market cannabis curriculum, the first cannabis education workshop series for City College of San Francisco's continuing education program, and I've lectured at UC Berkeley Haas School of Business. My experience as a stage 3 colon cancer survivor and my civil rights background fuels my passion for creating safe access to cannabis and sound policy without stigma through education. It's also made me a dedicated advocate for creating compassion programs to provide free cannabis for the critically and chronically ill, low-income community members. And I have been working on this since 2013 when I first started my compassion program at the Apothecarium. This year, I've been engaged in talks with my old nonprofit that I work for, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of the San Francisco Bay Area, where I worked for several years. And I'm engaging them in conversations to open their pro bono legal services for entrepreneurs clinics to equity applicants. I am super excited and honored to be part of continuing our work this year, and I am grateful for my colleagues. So thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to go back to someone from one of the non-voting members from seat 2, Police Department, is present now. And so I'll ask them to introduce themselves. Captain Waring.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. I know we were having some technical difficulties. Yes, I'm Captain Trina Waring with the San Francisco Police Department General Crime Unit. And since we've just started back up with the meetings and whatnot, I know that we've had like some restructuring that's happened internally for us. So right now I'm just trying to clear the chain of command if it will be me that will continue on with the process of meeting with the committee, or if I will be getting replaced by someone else since I no longer have the narcotics unit that I'm responsible for. But I wasn't sure what the format was that we were speaking to. But yeah, San Francisco PD, we're here to be a partner and to help and just to make sure that all the interests are covered and making sure that everybody's working together and the equity and the inclusion for the different partners is cohesive. So right now we're just trying to be a part of this process as well, just to kind of make sure everything is working well for everybody.
Thank you, Captain Waring, and thank you everyone from the committee for presenting and providing such rich information about your experiences and the qualifications you bring to these roles. I think it's clear we've known this for a while now, but especially after today's presentations, this is an extremely qualified group and we're happy to have you. So thank you very much for those introductions. At this point, Ray, let's move to public comment and see if there are either any individuals on the line or anyone who has submitted text messages. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikesh. I am looking at the attendee list now, and as of now, we do not have anyone waiting to provide public comment, and there's also no public comment submitted through the chat box. Do you want to give it a few more seconds?
Ray, thanks for the update. And in the interest of time, to make sure we're on track, let's go ahead and close agenda item number 4 and move on to agenda item 5. For agenda item 5, sorry, Ray, you were saying?
I did not say anything, and I think it's a good idea to proceed with item 5.
Thanks, Ray. I guess I'm hearing things, but thank you, Ray, for that. Let's keep moving along. I'll introduce item 5 now. At this time, you will continue to hear from me. I will give a brief presentation from the OOC, and then John Cerveto from RDA will follow. We will keep our presentation quick because it is material that many of you know, but just in the interest of getting everyone on the same page, we'll run through it again. If you have any questions, let us know at the end of our presentations. Then we'll move to public comment, and then there is a break on the horizon. So it's there.
I just got a message from a participant that sent a screenshot that says that public chat has been disabled.
Oh,
so
Chair Parks, thank you for the update.
Thank you for the update. And as of now, the the chat function has been enabling through items 1 and 5.
Okay, well, Chair Parks, thank you for letting us know. If you get another message, please let us know and we'll troubleshoot as much as we can. And for the participant who was experiencing that challenge, we apologize. There will be an opportunity for public comment again. So we look forward to hearing from you then. With that, Jet, if you could go ahead and share your screen and put the first presentation on everyone's queue, that would be great.
Thank you, Nikesh. I will share it. Ray, will you give me the ball?
Yes. Hold on 1 second, Jet.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Jet. All right, so as I was saying, everyone, my name is Nikesh Patel, and I will be giving you a very brief onboarding presentation. A lot of this you have heard, so we'll run through it, and there will be sections of this presentation that we will not go over, but that will be available once we post these materials For anyone who'd like to review it individually, I strongly suggest that anyone who occupies the chair and vice chair role moving down the line in the future orient themselves with this presentation in full. So with that, next slide. Thank you. The agenda here is we'll do a quick roster of the committee members. This is more for reference sake than anything. This can be a place where you can all return to see the full list of members. We will update it as we need to. I'll do a brief recap of the legislative mandate that gave life to the committee and the committee's responsibilities. Importantly, and we've talked about this many times, but we'll also go over the definition of a meeting. It is very important that the entire committee understands what a meeting is and the public notice requirements that follow. We want to ensure that we're always in compliance with regulatory law, especially around these meetings. So we'll do a quick review of that. I'll provide a brief example of how members can communicate with each other. The way that happens is a little less organic with respect to public compliance laws for these meetings. So it'll be a little counterintuitive, but I'll provide an example. Then these are the following two sections that I strongly encourage everyone to individually review: how to call a meeting to order, and then how to also call an item on the agenda. These items will be particularly useful for the individuals who serve as vice chair and chair. And then finally, we'll just provide a little bit of clarification about how the agenda is created so all members know what that process looks like. Next slide. So just very quickly, here are the seats for 1 through 7 for the non-voting members. As you can see, the Department of Public Health, Police Department, Department of Building Inspection, Planning Department, Unified School District, Entertainment Commission, and Fire Department are all represented on this committee. These are all departments that touch the cannabis permitting process in one form or another. Very valuable to have them on this committee. We're grateful to have you, and as we will experience over the course of the next couple of meetings, that members from these departments will be presenting and provide very timely and important information and updates. So thank you. Next slide. Seats 8 through 16, as you all heard, these are our voting members, and they represent a variety of different interests, from those who've been permitted through the equity program, to those who are equity applicants and have expertise in state laws and regs, to those who have started medical cannabis cannabis compassionate use programs. So there's a full range. Please refer to this roster at your need and convenience. Next slide. So as many of you know, the origin of the Cannabis Oversight Committee came from the Board of Supervisors. Former Supervisor Fuhrer spearheaded the efforts, and ultimately Ordinance number 26018 gave life to the committee. And that ordinance was shared with all of the members in advance. You can also find it on our website. So feel free to take a look for more information, but the gist of what that document says is it gives the Cannabis Oversight Committee its authority to do a couple of things. And one of those is to evaluate data on the growth of the cannabis industry. What you will see over the next several meetings is that the Office of Cannabis will be providing a very in-depth dive into data from 2020. And that is in part as a response to the requirement of the ordinance, but it's also very important information that the committee have to make policy and program decisions. Another role that the ordinance delineates is that the committee will make recommendations to the mayor and the board of supervisors to facilitate socially responsible growth of the city's cannabis industry. And primarily this, as many of the members have already mentioned, means looking at job creation and development of economic opportunities in a socially responsible way. Next slide. The ordinance also spells out the committee's scope of responsibilities with a little bit more exactitude. And what the document says is that the committee will make recommendations on the following items. The first is to the Office of Cannabis's implementation and enforcement of city laws and regulations relating to cannabis. The second item is the effectiveness of city laws and regulations relating to the equity program itself. And the final area that recommendations will be made to are with respect to the overall health and stability of the cannabis industry in San Francisco and possible avenues to further help the industry grow and prosper. Again, this really means looking at the economic opportunities that are made available for all people through the development of the cannabis industry in San Francisco. Next slide. All right, so this is where it's a little bit more counterintuitive. What is a meeting? The reason we are even discussing this is because anytime there is a formal meeting per the definition in the admin code, those meetings have to be noticed. So if there is a meeting that is had, and a meeting is defined as a majority of voting members, in this case, that means six voting members of the 9 voting members constitutes a quorum. The majority of voting members convene at the same time and place to discuss business within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. Decisions do not have to be made, but when these elements are met, the meeting has to be noticed, meaning that there has to be an agenda and it has to be provided to the public 72 hours in advance of the meeting. If a majority of voting members meet and convene at the same time and place to discuss anything within your jurisdiction as far as the subject matter is concerned, that is a meeting, and if it's not noticed, then we'll be in violation of Admin Code Section 67.3B1. It's really important that we all understand that, because one of the things that comes up is sometimes committee members have a desire to communicate amongst each other in between meetings. We have to be very careful how we do that, and we'll provide guidance on that in a moment. Next slide. A meeting also is defined under 67.3B2 as a series of gatherings outside of a noticed public meeting, each of which involves less than the majority to hear, discuss, or deliberate on an item within the subject matter jurisdiction, if the cumulative result is that a majority of members has become involved in such gatherings. That's a lot, and it's not the easiest to understand, so I'll simplify it. What that means is that if a handful of you have conversations amongst each other, and then those conversations are then had by those members and other members, if the total reach of that conversation extends to 6 or more people, then that is considered a meeting, even if you're not in the same place or even having those conversations at the same time. It's called a seriatim meeting, and it essentially applies to conversations over the phone, emails. If you have a conversation with 3 other people and they extend that conversation to 2 or 3 other people, that is a public meeting that has to be noticed. And by that point, it hasn't been noticed, so you'd be in violation of that regulation. It's really important we understand that. And with that, one of the pieces that we recommend is that if you have something that you'd like to communicate to the entire group, then it's best to send that communication to RDA. I believe there was a caller earlier today who had information that he'd like to communicate to the committee. The best way to do that would be to provide it to RDA. RDA can then disseminate it to all members and then also make that information publicly available through the posting in advance of the meeting. So that's the best way to have internal communications. It gets tricky. If you ever have a question or you're unsure, just reach out to anyone from the Office of Cannabis or Sarah Crowley, and we can weigh in and give you the right guidance. Okay, next slide. This next slide is essentially just a reiteration of what I said. Even if a majority of the members of a policy body are not present in one place at one time, an unlawful meeting can still occur. Next slide. And this is just an example that I've already provided. Short of it is that if one communication trickles down to 6 different people and they all have had that information at different points in time, that could be considered a meeting and it would need to be publicly noticed. Next slide. So one final point on meetings is that pre-meetings and post-meetings are also meetings. And the reason for that is you just go down the elements. If a majority gets together, which would be the case before a pre-meeting, before or after a scheduled meeting to review items on the agenda, which is happening, or otherwise discuss matters within the committee's jurisdiction, you have a meeting. So it's best to err on the side of caution and always reach out to a member of the office, and we can weigh in on the best way to communicate. Filtering information through RDA is a great way to do that as well. Okay, next slide. And a meeting does not occur when these elements are met. A minority gets together to otherwise communicate among themselves regarding matters within the committee jurisdiction. If 2 people have a conversation about something within the committee's jurisdiction and it's limited to that 2 people within the group, no meeting. But if that conversation then gets conveyed to 4 other people, then you do have a meeting. So it's that trickiness around the seriatim meeting. All right, next slide. And this is, again, just a reiteration of a point I made earlier. If you would like to communicate something to the entire group, send it to RDA, and they'll ensure that the entire group receives it and it's publicly noticed. The one area where you can have communications amongst each other, even if it exceeds 6, it's with procedural conversations. So administrative conversations about scheduling a meeting, for instance, are fine. It's just anytime you're talking about something that relates to your subject matter, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. So reach out to us if you have any questions. We'll keep moving along. Next slide. And finally, just as a point on the agenda, the way the agenda is typically created moving forward is the chair and vice chair seek input from the committee during meetings like this. And one of the agenda items later today is to gather information about future agenda setting. That input is then taken into a conversation with RDA and the Office of Cannabis to draft and publish an agenda. That agenda is created, it's finalized, it's reviewed by the city attorney's office for any sort of impropriety or lack of compliance. Once it passes that test, then we go ahead and post it to the website, always 72 hours in advance of the next meeting and sooner if we're able to. That's the general process for the agenda, and that's why the chair and vice chair have a significant responsibility of capturing what it is that the committee would like to talk about in future meetings, bringing it back to these conversations with RDA and OOC and crafting the agenda. Okay, so with that, I will now pass the second part of this presentation along to John from RDA. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask at the end of his presentation. Thank you.
Can someone give me the share function, or if Jet is going to present the PowerPoint, let me know.
That's right, John. Jet, can you please move to the second presentation now?
All right. Good afternoon, members of the Cannabis Oversight Committee. My name is John Cervetto. I am RDA's Consulting Director of Human Services, and I oversee the project team that works with the Cannabis Oversight Committee. We've worked with the committee since it began in late 2019, and normally sitting in my place would be my colleague David Klauber, who is currently going to be out of the office for a couple of months, and so he should return late summer. And then also on this meeting is my other colleague Emma Shifsky, who is our note taker. Okay, so can we go to the next slide, please? So I'm going to go over I'm going to introduce our team, our roles and responsibilities. I'll hand it off to Mukesh to talk a little bit about his office and their role, and then we'll talk about what's next on today's agenda in terms of electing a chair and vice chair and amending and adopting the committee bylaws. Next slide. So our role is to support the Oversight Committee to realize and achieve their priorities, create operational efficiencies, and just contribute to the overall effectiveness of the committee's procedure and ability to work as a working committee. We provide logistics and coordination for meetings. So as Nikesh was talking about, communicating questions, helping develop agendas. We're responsible for developing a report about the committee's work. And we also provide just general project management and communication to the committee, the OOC, and within our own team. Next slide. So our main deliverables that we're contracted with the Office of Cannabis to do includes facilitating the Oversight Committee. And as this little asterisk says, that our contract includes services for approximately 7 to 8 meetings as resources allow. We work with the office, with both the office and the committee to prepare agendas and materials for the meetings. And then we assist committee members in correspondence and requests to city departments and offices. Next slide.
Thank you, John.
We also, Yep.
Oh, I believe I can take over from here, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries. So with that, the Office of Cannabis also plays a role in supporting the Oversight Committee. And one of the things that we do, which you will see a lot in the next couple of meetings, is providing data and process updates and presentations regarding the permitting process. One of the key pieces of data along 9 different metrics that we'll provide over the next 2 meetings relates to what happened in the cannabis industry in 2020 from a sales tax revenue perspective, from a employment and hiring perspective, from a how did the cannabis industry grow. So these are all data points that we will provide information on, and over the next 2 meetings in particular. Another area that we really focus on is helping to facilitate discussions regarding recommendations. For many of you who are returning members, you'll note that we were present in the conversations around grant distribution. And as you know, our conversation and the information that we received from the committee was really helpful for making decisions around when to distribute, how much to distribute, who to distribute to. So the conversations and facilitating those discussions are a key part of what we do. We also assist the committee with requests for data from other city departments. We assist with coordination efforts with other city departments. This was the case last year with coordinating many of the trainings that the committee itself hosted with other departments. And then we work with the chair and vice chair to prepare agendas and meeting materials. John, back to you.
Thank you, Nikesh. So next slide. So when we return from our break, which will be coming up in just a few minutes, we have 2 tasks that we need to achieve to move this committee forward. And so the first part is electing chairs. And so that's the chair of the committee and the vice chair. So chairs serve for 2 years and are elected or removed by the committee for vote. The chair responsibilities is, aside from just being kind of the providing leadership to the committee, they call meetings to order and oversee the operation of the meetings. They make formal requests to the office or us on behalf of the committee. They work with the RDA team and the OOC outside of meetings to set agendas, secure presenters, and organize outreach and disseminate materials when necessary. They also draft statements, letters, and position pieces on behalf of the committees, and are responsible for enforcing the bylaws when applicable. The vice chair supports the committee in carrying out his or her responsibilities, and if the chair is absent or has to step down or what have you, they assume the same responsibility in the chair's absence. Next, so, or hold on one sec, can we go back to that? Just so what we'll be doing in the next part of the meeting is nominating and electing the committee chair and vice chair for the next 2 years. Next slide. And then the next piece that the other piece that we'll have to do is we're going to look at the committee bylaws. We've developed a working document with new content from the previous bylaws to elicit your feedback. Those are available both on the meeting on the city website with the meeting links, as well as we'll be displaying it on screen, and we'll give more instructions when that item comes up. The bylaws are a combination of mandates from city ordinance and commonly held bylaws and practices from other SF bodies. It also has, as a new piece, there's an incorporation of additional racial equity requirements per this Office of the City Administrator's Racial Equity Action Plan. And so we won't be voting on bylaws today. We'll be voting on them at the earliest during the second meeting. And just to note that before we can vote, the bylaws and amendments have to be reviewed by the city attorney and posted for 10 days before a formal vote.
And John, if I may just jump in real quick, many of you may be wondering, what are these additions to the bylaws? What are these racial equity requirements? We will definitely discuss them once we get to that portion of the agenda. So hang tight, but if you have those questions, the answers are coming.
And just to note that if you already have, if you're looking at the bylaws drafts that are out, it's the new information in the bylaws is in blue font. And I think that is the end of our this slide deck. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So before we move to public comment, are there any questions from the committee about what we just presented on? All right, hearing none. Ray, I think this would be a good time to see if there's any public comments. If you could just remind folks how to participate. And John, actually, it's fine. If you could just remind folks how to participate, that would be great. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Nikesh. For members of the general public, if you want to provide public comment to this particular agenda item, you have two options. You can either provide your public comment by the chat function, or you can call 1-415-655-0001 and then input the access code, which is 187-983-9993, and then press *3 when prompted to do so. And when you are up to speak, you will be unmuted. So as of now, we do have one individual waiting in line, and I'm going to unmute this individual. Hello, caller, you're up to speak. Okay. Hello, caller. Nikesh, looks like this caller is having a technical difficulty, and I don't see any other individual waiting in line to speak, and I'm going to move on to written comment in the chat box.
Ray, and it's possible that the member that you're referring to, or the individual you're referring to, may have just raised their hand again. Can you try one more time to see if it's possible to unmute that person?
Sure thing. Let me circle back. Hello, caller. Can you hear us? You are up to provide public comment. Hello?
Ray,
Looks like,
if we're having some technical difficulties there, then what we can do is ask this speaker to provide public comments during the general public comment section. So we apologize for the technical difficulty. If you could just hold on to your comment, there'll be another opportunity towards the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikesh. We will move on to written public comment. So we received one public comment that reads, is it true that Oversight Committee members are not allowed to vote on grant program items if they are grant fund recipients due to a potential conflict of interest? This is highly problematic if true, because it leaves equity partners out of valuable discussions about the needs of their businesses and individuals and collectively. They are mission-driven entrepreneurs who advocate for accountability to equity partners and deserve the benefit of the doubt that they will act with integrity and transparency. That concludes the written comment.
Thank you, Ray. Now that the public comment has been closed, committee members, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we move to close the item, or before we close the item and go to our break? All right, hearing nothing, we are now on a break for the next 15 minutes. We will all remain in the live session, so if you plan on having side conversations or need to exit the screen, just remember to mute yourselves and disable your video. The meeting will continue to be recorded during this time. See everyone in 15 minutes. Hi, everyone. This is just a heads up that we will be starting in about 3 minutes. Looking forward to having everyone back soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We will be starting in 1 moment. For the committee members, if you could just enable your camera to let us know that you are back, that would be great. Great. It looks like we have everyone. So let's go ahead and get started. We will move to agenda item 6. At this time, the committee will have an opportunity to nominate and approve a committee chair and vice chair. Jet, can you please pull up the slide showing the responsibilities for each, just so everyone has them handy? And similarly, if our past chair and vice chair, so Chair Parks and Vice Chair Cry, would like to provide any remarks about their experiences in these roles last year, you're invited to do so at this time.
Thank you so much. I was honored to be able to serve on the inaugural Oversight Committee meeting for San Francisco. I think we did a great job at getting an overall view of how each department was able to interact with all of our applicants, both general and equity. But there's so much more to do now that we have an understanding of how, you know, the bureaucracy navigates, and now it's more important to focus on the impacts and how that navigation is actually being felt in the community. So I would love to continue to serve as the chair as we continue this journey forward. And that's all.
Thank you, Member Parks, much appreciated. And former Vice Chair Cry, is there anything else that you'd like to add about what you learned from your experience in the role last year.
Yes, definitely learned the different roles each seat really plays. And I think at the end of the day, while there's a chair and vice chair, it really takes every single one of us to participate and be present in these meetings in order to get the full scope of what our community needs. That's exactly why we were put in the seats that we were put in. So I think at the end of the day, I really enjoyed my time as vice chair, and I hope that no matter who's chair or vice chair, that we continue to all participate as much as possible and make sure that we're voicing for our communities.
Thank you, Member Crive. We also very much appreciated your leadership last year, so thank you. With that being said, and with the committee having a little bit more information under their belt about the roles of the chair and vice chair, let's sort of move in the following process. For anyone who is interested in nominating themselves or nominating another person for the role of chair, please go ahead and make those nominations now. This is just for the chair.
Yes, I would like to nominate Ali for chair.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Nina for chair.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have Ali and Nina as nominated for chair right now. Any other nominations? All right, we will give it another 5 seconds. All right, well, I think that does it. So for the role of chair, we have 2 nominations right now, Ali and Nina. How about for the role of vice chair? Any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Jessica Cry for vice chair.
Thank you, Ali.
I'd like to nominate Brendan Hallinan for vice chair.
Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Brandon Hallahan for vice chair.
Thank you. Any other nominations? We'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, thank you for those nominations. At this point, what we'll do is we will give those who have been nominated, so for the position of chair, Ali and Nina, an opportunity to speak if they'd like to, and then we'll do the same for vice chair, and then we'll move to public comment. So Ali or Nina, the floor is yours if you'd like to provide remarks. Nina, I know you've spoken, but you have another opportunity if you'd like to.
I want to thank Sean for the nomination. I really appreciate it, especially coming from another social equity operator. That means quite a bit. So thank you, Sean, for the nomination. I feel pretty passionate about this committee, so I'm happy to be nominated and happy to run for it. And I think Nina and Jessica have done a fantastic job, and thank them for that as well. Thank you both.
Thank you, Ali. And Nina, would you like to say anything else?
No, I think I've taken up a lot of the floor already. I would love to move the process forward.
Nina, that's how I feel. I felt like I've been talking all day. All right, so moving on, let's go to the vice chairs. Jessica and Brendan, would you like to provide some remarks?
This is Brendan. Thank you for the nomination, and I'd be happy to do anything I can to help this committee be effective and run as smoothly and efficiently as possible. And I will be committed to doing that if I'm chosen to be the vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Jessica, anything else you want to add?
Yes, very similar. I would be happy if I was nominated as vice chair to continue the work of representing our, San Francisco community.
All right, thank you, everyone. What we'll do now is we will move to public comment, but before we do, just note that everyone will have an opportunity to cast 1 vote for chair and 1 vote for vice chair. We'll take votes after public comment, and if there's any additional comments you have after public comment, then there'll be opportunity for that as well. So with that, Ray, will you please remind folks how to participate and open the chat and the call line? Thank you.
Thank you, Nikesh. Again, members of the general public, if you would like to provide public comment for this particular agenda item, you can do that by either put your comment in the chat function, or you can call 1-415-655-0001 and then input the access code, which is 187-983-9993, and then press *3 when prompted to do so. And let me go ahead to check to see if there's anyone waiting in the line. Nikesh, we do have one individual waiting to speak, and I am going to unmute the speaker. Hello, speaker. You are up to speak, and you have 2 minutes. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Timothy Omi. I'm an equity operator here in the city, and I just want to definitely, in my interaction engagement with Ali, it's been really, really insightful to have him to be there as a resource for us equity applicants as well as operators, and I definitely think that he would be a great candidate to be the head chair. So thank you very much for my time to speak.
Thank you, caller. And Nikesh, we will move on to the next one waiting in line. Hello, Charles. You're up to speak. Please proceed. Hello, can you hear us, Charles? Nikesh, looks like Charles is having technical difficulty. And as of now, I don't see any other public comments in the chat function. And would you like to wait for a couple more seconds?
Ray, let's do this. While we move to the voting section, because there is the general public comment section at the end, would you mind maybe sending Charles a chat through WebEx to see if we can try and help him resolve the challenge he's having with calling in? And we'll move on to a vote, and then if we can resolve it, that's great. If not, then we'll find another way. Does that sound okay?
Sure thing. And before I do that, we actually received one public comment for this particular item.
Great,
and,
thanks, Ray.
Sure thing. And the public comment reads, why are meetings limited to 7 to 8 times a year? Is it really that expensive for OOC and RDA to hold these meetings monthly? Maybe a shorter duration? We need the Cannabis Oversight Committee to maintain the momentum. Hold on 1 second. To maintain the momentum to make urgent recommendations and demands of the OOC. And the next comment section is actually submitted by Charles Peppers. We calling in from the cell phone now to try it again. Looks like Charles is trying to call again with a different phone, so we will see. And the next public comment in writing reads, I am in support of Ali as chair. And before I conclude this public comment section, let me look at the attendee list one more time. And as of now, we do not have any other individual waiting in line. Cash, pass back to you. Oh, actually, my apologies. Looks like Charles Peppers just raised his hand again, and let me try to unmute him one more time. Hello, Charles.
Hello, I'm on a different phone. Does this work?
Yes, please proceed.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, when I introduced myself before, I said I was a dispensary owner. I was after dispensary owning in San Francisco. I was chairman of the Berkeley Cannabis Commission, a relevant experience for 8 years. And so I just want to put my 2 cents in here a little bit about this oversight committee. I said about the agenda, was happy with that. I'm very happy with the nominees. I think they'll do great. But in my experience, the chairman and the vice chairman are so important in preparing the agenda and making the meeting flow. And so I hope whoever you choose will put a lot of work into it. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your public comment. That concludes our public comment section.
Thank you, Ray. So with that, let's move to taking a vote. We'll vote first for the chair. And the way that we'll proceed, just to keep this orderly, is the first nominee will be announced. Everyone will have an opportunity to vote in favor of that nominee. And once votes have been finalized, we'll set that aside, then go to the next nominee for chair and repeat the same process. So with that, John, will you please read off the name of the first nominee and take a vote? And before we do that, just for formality purposes, I would like to have someone on the committee just motion to make a motion for the chair nominee.
I'll make a motion that we vote for the chair nominations.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. With that, John, will you please proceed in the manner I described?
Oh, sorry to interrupt John and Cash. So apparently there is one public comment section in writing submitted right after we conclude the public comment section. Do you want me to convey this to the committee members, or we should proceed with the voting?
Ray, is it related to this particular item, or can it be saved for the general public comment?
I believe this is related to this item.
Okay, then sure, go ahead and read it.
Sure thing. I highly recommend Nina Parks to continue the committee chair. That concludes this public comment.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, with that being said, David, will you please proceed with the vote for the first nominee and then with the second nominee for chair?
Okay, so I'll start, I'll go and start with Ali Jamalian. So I guess it's a yes, no vote for him as chair. So seat 8, Ali Jamalian for Ali Jamalian.
Aye.
Thank you. Seat 9, Aaron Flynn for Ali Jamalian as chair.
No.
No. Thank you. Seat 10, Jessica Cry for Ali Jamalian as chair.
Yes.
Seat 11, Doug Block for Ali Jamalian as chair.
Yes.
Seat 12, Sean Richards for Ali Jamalian as chair.
Yes.
Seat 13, Nina Parks for Ali Jamalian as chair.
No.
Seat 14, Brendan Holonan for Ali Jamalian as chair.
Yes.
Seat 15, Teresa Foglio Ramirez for Ali Jamali as chair.
Aye.
And seat 16, Sarah Payan for Ali Jamalian as chair.
No.
So next vote for Nina Parks. Seat 8, Ali Jamalian for Nina Parks.
And John, sorry to break in, but given that there were only 3 votes not in favor, it probably makes sense just to focus on those 3 individuals. So Aaron, Nina, and Sarah.
Sure. Thank you, Nikesh.
No problem.
For that point of order. So seat 9, Aaron Flynn for Nina Parks as chair.
Yes.
Moving down to seat 13, Nina Parks for Nina Parks as chair.
Yes.
And seat 16, Sarah Payan for Nina Parks as chair.
Yes.
So we have 5 votes for Ali Jamalian as chair, or in favor of Ali Jamalian as chair, 3 votes not in favor, 0 abstentions, and then 3 votes for Nina Parks as chair. So 5-3.
John, will you just count that one more time to make sure that's accurate?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I miscounted that. So that's 6 in favor of Ali Jamalian and 3 in favor of Nina Parks.
Great, thanks, John. Let's to the committee now. Can I hear a motion for voting on the nominations for vice chair, please?
I'll make
The motion.
that motion.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And can I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right. So, John, if you could go ahead and take the vote, starting with the first nominee, Jessica, and then moving to Brendan.
Yep. So seat 8, Ali Jamalian, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Aye.
Seat 9, Aaron Flynn, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Aye.
Seat 10, Jessica Cry, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Yes.
Seat 11, Doug Block, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Aye.
Seat 12, Sean Richard, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
No.
Seat 13, Nina Parks, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Yes.
Seat 14, Brendan Hallinan, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Yes.
Seat 15, Teresa Foglio Ramirez, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Yes.
Seat 16, Sarah Payan, for Jessica Cry as vice chair.
Aye.
Okay, moving on then to Brendan Hallinan. So seat 12, Sean Richard, for Brendan Hallinan as vice chair.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 8 yays for Jessica Cry and 1 yay for Brendan Hallinan.
Okay, thank you, John. So with that, the new chair of the Oversight Committee is Ali Jamalian, and the returning vice chair will be Jessica Cry. Congratulations on your election. And with that, we will move on to the next agenda item. Before we do, are there any other comments from committee members? Okay, hearing none, moving on to...
I would just like to thank our outgoing chair for her service.
Here, here.
A second.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Nina. Given that it was also our first year of hosting the Oversight Committee last year, it was a pleasure working with you. So thank you very much.
We got a lot done
That's
under
right.
your leadership. Thank you, Madam Chair.
It was an honor to serve.
Okay, so with that, we will now close agenda item 6 and move to agenda item 7. Call agenda item 7. At this time, we will discuss the committee bylaws. As John mentioned during his presentation, the committee bylaws have been amended to reflect the incorporation of racial equity commitments set forth in the Office of the City Administrator's Racial Equity Plan. I'll explain what that is in a moment in a presentation. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reserve them till after the presentation. What we will also do after I've concluded with the presentation is John will share his screen and scroll through the particular sections that have been added per the racial equity commitments under the Racial Equity Action Plan. It's a lot of racial equity. We'll get to it in a moment. As he noted, there will be no vote on the bylaws today. They need to be posted 10 days in advance of a vote being able to be taken. So today is more of an opportunity to review, have a discussion, and then the vote will likely be during the next meeting or the following meeting, depending on amendments that are proposed by the committee. Jet, with that, if you could go ahead and queue up agenda item 7 presentation, that'd be great. Thank you. So next slide. Great. So many of you may be wondering, what are these racial equity commitments? And to answer that question, we actually need to take a little bit of a step back and paint the broader context. The city and county of San Francisco, and by the mayor's passing in 2019, passed a piece of legislation that essentially created the Office of Racial Equity and also required all city departments to produce a racial equity plan. And that plan was in 2 different phases. I'll speak to a little bit more about that in a moment, but it's important to note from the outset that these adoptions to the bylaws come from that work, which is larger work that the entire city is undertaking. And these requirements or commitments that are being asked to be implemented in your bylaws are also being asked by the other committees, commissions, and boards that fall within the Office of the City Administrator. The Office of the City Administrator is the larger department. The Office of Cannabis is a office within that department. And there are, like you, a handful of other committees, commissions, and boards that fall under the Office of the City Administrator that will be adopting similar requirements. We'll get to that in a moment, but just wanted to paint that context. We'll start by just providing a little bit of a grounding, so a definition of what racial equity is, a background on what racial equity in the legislative mandate looks like, where we are now, and then specifically go into these racial equity commitments that have been adopted or that have been drafted into the existing set of bylaws for your review. Next slide. This is a definition that we are taking from the Anti-Oppression Resource Training and Alliance. What does racial equity look like? It looks like achieving racial equity means living in a world where race is no longer a factor in the distribution of opportunity. That's the definition that was used by the Office of the City Administrator in drafting their Racial Equity Action Plan, and the Office of Cannabis was supportive towards that effort. So this is also the definition that we believe in. Next slide. As I was mentioning, there was a legislative mandate in 2019. Maryland and Breed signed racial equity legislation into law. It required, in part, the city create an Office of Racial Equity, and it also mandated each city department to create a racial equity plan that both focused internally, so addressing policies, programs, and initiatives within city departments to address and create racial equity, and also in the services that those departments provide. Part of where we are in the process right now is that first step was due on December 31st, 2020. That is the Racial Equity Action Plan that we've been referring to, and you'll see it in a moment. Next slide. What was required by this legislation? There's the longer-term goal and the short-term goal. Again, I've touched on both of these. The longer-term goal is to look at creating racial equity both within city departments. If you get the work right on the inside, then it translates to the services that those departments are providing to the communities they serve. So it's twofold. Focus internally to develop a robust set of racial equity policies, goals, and programs, and then deliver those services outward to the communities that these departments work with. It's the long-term goal. The short-term goal was to create a racial equity action plan that was due December 31st, 2020. That is the plan we've been referring to, and the Office of the City Administrator submitted their plan by that date. The Office of Cannabis was a part of that process and supported the drafting of that plan. Next slide. Where are we now? As I mentioned, the plan itself was submitted, and you can find it at this link here. I won't read it because that's not going to be helpful to anybody, but that link is there, and you can find it when we do post these materials to the website. Another effort that was taken is that the Office of the City Administrator, ADM, it's the acronym it goes by, also created a racial equity internal survey. And the results of that survey, as well as a report, as well as an event that was held to discuss the findings of the report, can all be found on the website linked above. So if you are curious about what the Office of the City Administrator has done with respect to its racial equity requirements, you can find the plan, as well as the survey, the report, and events that have been held in the goal of advancing racial equity on this website link that you can see on the screen. Now, this is what I was saying a little bit earlier. These commitments that came out of the Racial Equity Action Plan are not just limited to the Cannabis Oversight Committee. They also apply for incorporation into the bylaws for the Entertainment Commission, the Grant for the Arts Advisory Panel, the Immigrant Rights Commission, the Mayor's Disability Council, Transgender Advisory Committee, and the Treasure Island Development Authority Board of Directors. These are all boards, commissions, and committees that fall under the Office of the City Administrator. And like the Cannabis Oversight Committee, these committees, boards, and commissions are also in the process of revising their bylaws and incorporating the equity commitments that are laid out in the plan. Next slide. Now, here's what we're actually talking about. And if you have a copy of the bylaws that were provided to you in advance of this meeting, you can follow along by looking at these corresponding sections. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items have been factored into the draft of the bylaws that you have before you. One of the commitments under the Racial Equity Plan is to update the mission statement by applying a racial equity lens. Another element is appoint a racial equity lead. Another is include, and just to take a moment for that second bullet point, this will be something that the committee will be doing during the next meeting. The third bullet point, include a racial equity lead's responsibilities section. So this way, the racial equity lead's responsibilities are laid out. This section has also been drafted into the bylaws. The fourth bullet point is discuss the process for administering an internal survey to evaluate racial equity within the committee's work. As you'll see, this effort will be led by the racial equity lead. We can get to this, we can get into the nitty-gritty a little bit later, but this is just to orient you to the sections that have been added. The fifth bullet point is to incorporate a safe space agreement. This is really a set of rules that promote a safe space for people to speak and not feel as if their voice has to be silenced, or at least accounts for some of the power dynamics in conversations that can make difficult conversations challenging to have. The next bullet point is to adopt the Ramaytush Ohlone land acknowledgement. The next bullet point is to incorporate Prop C. And the final piece here is to adopt a racial equity resolution. That is a heavy lift. The racial equity lead will be working closely with the Office of Cannabis for that particular item. But this is just to give you an overview. I think at this time, it would be wise to look at the bylaws and familiarize yourself with these particular sections. We will make this slide available. And like I mentioned, John will be pulling up the actual bylaws. All of the sections that have been added are highlighted in blue. Next slide. All right, so that was a lot of information. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them right now. If you need a few minutes just to orient yourself to the bylaws, please do so. Like I said, we will not be voting on the bylaws today. That will either happen during the next meeting or the following meeting, depending on this conversation. Thank you. Okay, so not hearing any questions right now. Ray, will you please pass the ball back to John so he can share his screen and the bylaws as well?
Sure thing. 1 second, Akash.
Thank you.
And John, all yours.
Okay, so as John scrolls through this document, you'll note that certain sections are highlighted in blue. These sections correspond to the racial equity commitments that I just discussed in the PowerPoint. What we'll do at this time is if anyone would like to weigh in with reactions, comments, questions, feel free to do so. If I don't hear anything in the next maybe 15 seconds, then we'll open it up to public comment and then give folks another opportunity to weigh in after that.
Hey, Nikesh, while we are
Yes.
waiting, let me announce the number for the public comment one more time while we are waiting for the community members to look through the agenda, the bylaws, I mean. Okay.
That sounds good.
Yep. So we will open up for the public comment section for this particular agenda item soon. For members of the public, if you would like to provide public comment, you can do that by input your public comment in the chat function, or you can call 1-415-655-0001 and then input the access code, which is 187-983-9993, and then press *3 when prompted to do so. And when you are up to speak, you'll be unmuted. And pass it back to you, Nikesh.
Thank you, Ray. Do any of the committee members have any comments, questions? Okay, hearing nothing, Ray, I think this is a good time to open it up for public comment.
Excellent. Let me look at the attendee list right now. And as of now, I don't see anyone waiting in line to provide public comment. That is also true for the chat box. As of now, we do not have any submitted public comment for this item.
Thank you, Ray. We'll give it another couple of seconds. And if not, then we'll return to the committee members. Okay, thank you, Ray. With that, we will close public comment for agenda item number 7. Returning back to the bylaws, committee members, can you just give me a sense of the general consensus right now, if it's better to use a little bit more time in between meetings to review and then revisit this during the next meeting, or if anyone has any concrete reactions, comments, or thoughts, then we can share those at this time as well.
I have a question. There's no changes besides the implementation of the mayor's ordinance. Is that correct?
That's right. Everything that has been altered, as far as I'm aware, is related to the equity commitments, and those sections are highlighted in blue. The rest of the document is the same.
Thanks, Nikesh.
No problem. And perhaps this is helpful. As a matter of form, there are 2 ways to proceed here. One is to take the comments now, implement them in the next draft, post them, and then possibly post them 10 days before the meeting, and then put the bylaws to a vote. If there isn't that much reaction and the commitments look fine to most members, then we can leave it as is. We'll post it 10 days before the meeting and take a vote. Either way, there will have to be a drafting period where it's posted 10 days, the public has to respond, and then we can put it to a vote. So depending on what happens right now, either that'll happen at the next meeting and it'll be this version that'll be put to a vote, or if there are any comments or critiques, then it'll be drafted in, posted, and then possibly voted upon during the next meeting.
I have a question. Is Brendan Hallinan?
Sure. Thanks, Brendan.
Does the city administrator's office provide guidance or training for the racial equity lead?
At this time, that piece is still being developed, so it's unclear whether the office of the city administrator will. However, our office, the Office of Cannabis, will be working with the racial equity lead, given our involvement in the actual racial equity action plan when it was written. So the answer is unclear at this point. If there is the ability to do that, then I think it will happen. If not, then the OOC will provide some guidance to that position, or to the individual who holds that position.
Thank you.
Nikesh, could we make a motion to post this now and vote on it? If there's not a lot of opposition on the committee, could we make a motion to have this the posting period begin after the meeting today?
If that's the motion and you get a second, then you absolutely can.
I don't know how do the other members feel about it.
I'll second it if you make a motion.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would make a motion to post this as is. I know I've read it. I think most of the members read it, and start that process so we can adapt them with our next meeting.
Definitely.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I agree.
Second.
Great. So with that second, John, will you take a vote on the motion to post these bylaws? Not that the bylaws have been voted and adopted, but that the motion is to post the bylaws for adoption. So can you take a vote on that, please?
Yep. Motion to post the bylaws as they are written. Starting, we'll go in order, numerical order. Seat 8, Ali Jamalian.
Aye.
Seat 9, Aaron Flynn.
Aye.
Seat 10, Jessica Cry.
Aye.
Seat 11, Doug Block.
Aye.
Seat 12, Sean Richard.
Aye.
Seat 13, Nina Parks.
Aye.
Seat 14, Brendan Hallinan.
Aye.
Seat 15, Teresa Foglio Ramirez.
Aye.
Seat 16, Sarah Payan.
Aye.
So, motion carries with 9 ayes, no, 0 nays, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, John. Right, with that, agenda item 7 now closes, and we move on to item number 8. At this time, committee members, please discuss options for a standing meeting, identifying preferred meeting intervals, time of the month, days, and times. That'll be the first item that the committee discusses. There's another part to this agenda item, which is future agenda setting. That'll be discussed once we've landed on time intervals, a preferred date, time, date, etc. So the floor is yours for that conversation.
I have a question. It's now and then. I know last year there was some issues with the number of meetings based on the budget being virtual and in-person meetings. Is there anything we need to take into account in that regard in this conversation?
That's a good question. I can certainly chime in, and Director Rodriguez, if you'd like to add anything, please do. But our understanding is, based on last year's experience, the budget generally accommodates for 7 to 8 meetings. The reason for that is the virtual meetings end up being a little bit more expensive than the in-person meetings. Again, we don't necessarily know what the future looks like in terms of whether virtual meetings will continue, if they'll continue for a certain point in time. So it's hard to predict with absolute certainty what the cost will be moving forward. But our past experience is that the OOC and RDA can support 7 to 8 meetings. If the committee itself would like to have meetings outside of those without the support of RDA and the Office of Cannabis, then that's certainly an option. But the budget allows for about 7 to 8. Director Rodriguez, did I miss anything or misspeak?
No, that's right. That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm vaccinated, guys. Let's meet in person.
Hey.
Missed everybody.
We're going to Aaron's house.
Aaron,
Give us your address.
You're gonna have to put pants on, Aaron.
I feel like Nina and Jessica worked this out already, and we don't really need to reinvent the wheel. If everyone's okay with the same sort of interval,
I
we could
kind
just
of
keep.
think that maybe if we cut it in half, like cut the time period in half, maybe we can have more meetings, because there was the concern of, like, last time there was so much that we actually needed to address, and then we got like the last meeting completely cut out. You know what I mean? So
Agreed.
yeah, if there is
Maybe 2-hour meetings.
Yeah, 2-hour versus 4-hour meetings.
I think most of us have also a work day, so it's really difficult to get kind of the entire day out and not be productive. So if it's okay to increase the frequency, but turn it into 2-hour meetings, would that potentially make it a 10 meeting or 12 meeting session?
That's a good question. And sorry, I'm just having a little bit of interference. If you're not speaking, can you just go ahead and put your phone on mute? Great, thank you. So Ali, that and Nina, that is a really good suggestion. Part of what we don't know right now is how that would affect the cost of the meetings. It's sort of practical. You would think that it would split the meeting in half, but we just don't know that yet because we haven't hosted a 2-hour meeting versus a 3-hour meeting. So that's one factor to consider. We'll have a better sense if we do switch to that form, what the costs are associated with that. The other item last year, because I know there was conversation around meeting more frequently, one of the challenges that we run into is depending on what's on the agenda and whether or not another department is needed, or there's another speaker who's needed, or there's a third party, generally speaking, that's presenting during that meeting, it sort of depends on their availability. I know for the Office of Cannabis, with our other core requirements, a month is an aggressive timeline for meetings, but it's doable. It really becomes harder once we're factoring in third parties and trying to coordinate with their schedules. That's where, despite what we might like to do, we're sort of beholden to other people's schedules. So just something to consider.
Yeah, and I'd also add, I think it'd be really important then also if we are leaning in that direction to identify a standing time a month. I know every month we're always kind of, does this work for you? Does this work for you? Maybe not you, this work. But if we knew that, every first Friday or every first Tuesday or whatever it is, and it was standard, that would be something we need to work towards. So that's communicating, maybe RDA reaching out with a survey, what time of month would actually be workable. So we knew that we're always meeting and we have to have quorum, right? So that's very important as well.
And to Nina's point and your point, Nikesh, I think if we draft pretty efficient agendas that kind of focus on one subject at a time, so we can really get through that subject instead of, because Nina and them had to create quite a big amount of foundation that we now can work off. But, we can have certain components that are the focus of that meeting. And that way we can be a little bit more efficient and hopefully have 1 or 2 more meetings. I do understand that it probably won't translate to doubling up, but for now, I would say we should try to have a meeting maybe every first or second Wednesday of the month and get a vote going on that, because that kind of will crystallize what people actually have in terms of time and availability.
I just want to support the recommendation of having a regular standing meeting time, not only for us, but for members of the public so that they can plan ahead. And just to be sensitive about the time of day we choose. We do hear from a lot of equity applicants and folks from the equity community at this committee. And so I just want to respect those people so that they can participate.
So we'll send out a survey with the time, the date, and what time of day works the best for the community. And you'll have to, if you are having conversations with the community at large, to maybe reflect that in your responses.
And Director Rodriguez, in sort of interest of efficiency, there's 2 options. We could go that route where we send out a doodle poll, or if we can try and get a pulse of how people are feeling right now about a set date and time. So I heard from Chair Jamalian that either first or second Wednesday of each month. Is there a certain time that folks feel is a good time? We've normally met from 1 to 4 in the afternoon period. Is that a time that people still feel works, or are members leaning in a different direction?
Early afternoon seems, well, I can only speak for me, but it works well for my schedule.
It works well for my schedule too, because I can get some things done out of the way in the morning that might be pressing for work, and then I can reserve the early afternoon for us.
And would there be a preference for how long that meeting is, or how long the meeting is? Currently it's 3 hours, but if we're meeting in the early afternoon, then depending on the time interval, maybe the meeting could happen a little bit later, maybe it happens a little bit earlier. just want to hear people's thoughts.
I'd like to cut it by an hour if that's possible to see if we can squeeze another extra few meetings out, obviously depending on your price, on the cost structure of it. But 1 to 3 is what I would suggest if that works for everybody.
I agree with Ali. I think that's a great suggestion.
Okay, and Director Rodriguez, from our end, can you think of any challenges with the Wednesday date? I know we have a ton of standing meetings and just want to make sure that it's something that we're also available for.
At this time, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think it's probably fine. Later in the day tends to be safer. So we'll just take a look, but I think we'll be able to make it work.
Okay, great, thank you.
Quick question. So just so I'm clear on everything, we're talking about getting everything down. I can't really read it because it's really small and I need glasses. So we're talking about cutting this down to 2 hours. Thank you. So that we can have these meetings monthly rather than every other month, right? That's the goal. Ultimately, is to have it every month. Okay. So to make sure, because
with the exception, I believe, of August. I think August is always a dead month.
Okay.
Or I think December. Did we decide December for this committee? I know the Board of Supervisors and everyone else has gone August, so we'll see how many we can get through the year. We'll go back and do the math, and we'll bring it back.
Right, and that's a good point, Director Rodriguez. I think we can provide that information once we have a little more clarity. And then the other item, as Chair Jamalian noted, we'll take a look at the costs associated with the shorter meeting and keep the committee apprised of that as well. So you're in a position to decide whether that makes sense or the older model make more sense. Okay, so if there aren't any additional questions, then it's just a matter of putting it to a motion, getting a second, and then putting it to a vote.
I guess the one thing I'd put forward real quickly is, I think a lot of what takes up time is the administrative elements that come into play. Certainly reviewing the agenda is important. The public comment and other things. Is there a way, and this is just kind of a blanket question, to maybe cut down on some of the admin time if we're having more frequent meetings? That would be my only concern is, that's one thing that's efficient about a longer meeting is those elements are out of the way, and then we have more time to really dive into, the points of the conversations we need to get into. And if we have more frequent meetings and yet those administrative elements stay the same amount of time, it's going to chisel away at the time for the substantive conversation.
That's a really good point, Committee Member Flynn. And the administrative elements of the agenda are a reflection of requirements. So it would be hard to remove any of those items, like the first item and the second item. Typically, they have to happen. Roll call has to happen. The review of minutes from the previous meeting and review of the agenda has to happen. Those are fixtures. There has to be a public comment section for each item on the agenda. So what you're saying makes sense, but if the number of items on the agenda are fewer, then it also will reflect fewer public comment sections. There has to be a general public comment section, so that will be a reserved space on the agenda. That's already 3 agenda items right from the get-go. And from our experience, if it's a weighty agenda item, then it could be anywhere between 30 minutes to, well, anywhere between an hour to 2 hours, just based on some of the conversations we had around grants last year. So it really depends on the agenda item, but I would say that you have to factor in the public comment section, both general and specific, and you have to have the first 2, which are roll call, review of the agenda, and review of the minutes. Those are sort of, they're fixtures of the agenda. One of the other things I'll add, and I mentioned this during a previous presentation, is the committee will be receiving a series of very intensive data presentations, and we anticipate that those presentations will take anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour, each installment of those presentations. We're trying to limit it to about 2, but you'll find that the information that we'll be covering is really important to allow the conversations you'll be having. So it is really necessary, and we want to make sure that you have that information. So just something to keep in mind, that those 2 items will be on the the two sets of presentations will be spread across the next couple of meetings, and we anticipate them taking anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour, factoring in questions and answers.
Well, and you anticipate those to be sort of within the first 3 meetings, these heavy data presentations?
Yeah, I think for the committee's benefit, just so they could so you all can have a conversation that's centered around actual experience from 2020, we think it makes sense to front load those presentations. They may steer the agenda moving forward. Again, we're open to conversation around that once we meet to craft the agenda, but based on the data that it looks at profits, revenue, it looks at hiring data, it looks at the number of cannabis businesses that were permitted during that time, the costs associated with these businesses, really important data for the committee to know. We think it makes sense to have them be towards the beginning, towards the first couple meetings. They're just long.
Well, in light of that and Aaron's point, that's absolutely valid about administrative costs. And since we don't know the cost of a 2-hour meeting, wouldn't it make more sense to schedule the next 2 meetings as is 3 hours? And then in the meantime, we can figure out what the cost benefit of having shorter meetings would be. I do think that a lot of the administrative costs can be mitigated by having efficient agendas with few items where we actually get through, vote, take public comment, and close them. But it doesn't make sense to do it now if we have 2 heavy data presentations ahead of us and we don't really know the benefit. So maybe we can change that. Sorry, but it just makes more sense that way.
And also to keep in mind, wanting presentations from other city partners like we did last year. There may be updates you want, presentations you want to hear, they take time. And then also just to add, the time to prepare these very data heavy presentations takes a lot from the Office of Cannabis. And so having some lead time is very helpful to us too, just kind of thinking that. That doesn't mean we can't meet once a month. It just means perhaps we ask for it 1 month, but take 2 meetings to get to it. Just being realistic about capacity.
No, that's a really good point, because I know previously when we were drafting agendas, it felt like things had to be right then and immediate. But I think, yeah, I think it would be good at least to set up a timetable. If we do end up having shorter meetings and we know that the next meeting can't address the specific issues, that we make sure to date it for a specific time when we do go back to it. We don't want anything left behind.
Yeah, and just speaking of constraints, we have about 11 minutes left in the meeting, so it's a good opportunity to either put a motion forward and come up with a standing date and time that can be subject to some minor modifications later down the line, because we still have the item of future agenda items that the committee members might like to see on the next couple of agendas to discuss. So this might be a good time to put something to a motion. Otherwise, we can send out a doodle poll and get consensus that way.
I'd like to make a motion to have a standard meeting every first or second Wednesday of the month from 1 to 3.
Second that motion.
And before we put that to a vote, Ali, I know that you had said that maybe the first couple meetings make sense to be a little bit longer, but 1 to 3 would be that 2-hour spot. So is that still the case, or?
Right, but Marisa just said you guys don't have all the presentations ready yet, right?
We do have them now.
Okay.
I'm hearing.
Sean, should we change that motion to 1 to 4 for the first meeting?
I think it was probably difficult to hear. There was some feedback. Do you want to say that again, Ali?
Yeah, I'd like to change that motion to every first or second Wednesday, 1 to 4. Does that work for you, Sean? I'll just make a motion every first to second Wednesday, 1 to 4 p.m.
Second.
1 to 4 p.m.
Second that.
Okay, so with that being said, And okay, so that motion is on the table. Before we can put anything to a vote, there needs to be an opportunity for public comment. In the interest of efficiency and time, let's table that motion. It's there, and we'll vote on it when we vote on the second item as well. So it's there. Let's move on to the second item, then we'll take public comment. The second item is, do committee members have an interest in certain items being added to the agenda? This can be an ongoing list, and as committee member Cry mentioned, these can be factored into future agendas as well. So the question before the committee is, are there specific items that you'd like to see reflected on a agenda moving forward?
Definitely would love to address the impacts and efficiency of these equity grants, as well as conversations about reformatting the grants as needed. And then also having a conversation about how much of the grant money is left, and then for us to do reallocations of who qualifies to receive that grant money, as well as what the OC needs as far as support to do extensions of the grant dollars if necessary at the state level.
I'd also add to that I'd like to discuss the fact that cashing the checks has been really difficult because there's cannabis, the Office of Cannabis being on there is a red flag. So it's been a hardship for equity people.
I don't know if it's having the Office of Cannabis on there. I don't think our name is on there. I think it's names in the business entities that have the word cannabis or hemp that have created the challenge. But yes, it is an issue.
Oh, thank you for that, Rich.
Yeah, the check itself doesn't bear. It comes from.
This is not under the equity grant issue, but I had requested this under our last committee. I would still like to hear more about enforcement, particularly in the illicit market, and how we can support the Office of Cannabis to do better enforcement.
Okay, and thank you for that, committee member Block. It's worth noting that we will have an opportunity for continuing this conversation as well. In the interest of time, we can continue this for a little bit longer, or we can go ahead and take public comment, put these items to a vote, factor them into the next couple of agendas, given that they're already pretty impacted, and then continue this conversation at a future meeting.
I just have one more
reaction. Yeah, sure.
Or maybe one more. I was just going to say maybe if there could be added for us to follow up on the recommendations that were previously made on November 18th. All 8 of them.
Yeah.
And then also, oh, sorry, Jessica, are you done? My bad.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, and then also the mayoral, what are they? The amendments made by the mayor's office, I think, should be up for discussion with the oversight committee, because that was something that should have went through the oversight committee prior to the amendments being made, but we could definitely take a look at them now.
And then I would like to add also workforce development and career pathways. It's part of what our committee is supposed to be doing.
If we can just add apprenticeship to Teresa's point, if you don't mind me adding that.
I do want to voice real quick that is our number 6 on our recommendations too.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Not the permanent tax structure. Last one, I promise.
Okay, noting it now.
Thank you.
And in the interest of time, let's go ahead and move on. Like I was mentioning, the next couple of agendas are pretty packed with that data, with those data presentations. So these topics will be dispersed over them, but we've got a good list for now. We'll discuss with the chair and vice chair about how to prioritize them. Let's open it up for public comment. Ray, would you mind reminding folks how to participate?
Sure thing. So for members of the general public, if you want to provide public comment for this agenda item, you can do so by put your comment in the chat function, or you can call 1-415-655-0001 and then input the access code, which is 187-983-9993. And then press *3 when prompted to do so. When we are up to provide public comment, we will unmute you and you will have 2 minutes to do so. With that, as of now, Nikesh, I see 2 individuals waiting in line, and I'm going to unmute the first speaker. Hello, speaker.
Hi.
You're up to provide public comment.
Hi, this is Reese, the owner of Posh Greens, first woman-owned Black cannabis dispensary. How's everyone doing today? My comment is that to piggyback off what Nina said about the grant disbursements, I know there's a timeline and the grants can go back to the state if we don't use them all, if we don't ask for extension, and we don't want to lose that money. So I think it should be a second round. I think the sole owners and companies did not ask for enough money in the first time when the oversight committee made these rules. I think that we should ask for at least $300,000 for sole owners and 50% of that for the other owners. And yep. And the amendment. I know today we're not probably really touching on that, but I was contacted by the mayor's office, Nicole and them last month about the amendment, and I was not happy with some of the points. I had actually my lawyer write up some points on there, and one of them was to, if they're going to go with this 5-year deal thing, to give the people $150K, and they didn't add that. So I guess that the city's attorney didn't approve it, like she said she thought he wouldn't. And so I think that need to be revisited. I think this is really unfair for the equity people with that 5-year deal thing. Like, you know, it's 10 years now. And if people want to get away in 5 years, fine, give them some money. That's it.
All right. Thank you for your comment, Reese. And we will move on to the next speaker. Hello, speaker.
I'm Charlie. Yes, Charlie Pappas again. Again, based on my Berkeley Cannabis Commission experience, I would recommend a 2-hour meeting, same day, first or second day of the month. And you could always extend it for half an hour. That doesn't happen very often. But and the other suggestion would be, when you have a busy agenda, you have subcommittee meetings in between your meetings to facilitate the general meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Charles. And Nikesh, I do not see other members from the public waiting to speak, but we do receive one written comment. That comment reads, please add an agenda item for the OOC to report on critical items regarding the $5 million in funding received, such as budget allocations for reimbursement versus advancement, verify equity applicants versus permitted operators, and total funds disbursed to date. That concludes the comment.
Ray, it's possible that we may have received another call. Will you just check that queue one more time?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Nikesh, as of now, we do not have any other members from the public waiting to speak.
Thank you, Ray. With that, we will close public comment for agenda item 8. Going back to the committee members, there was previously a motion. I think the next item before a vote can be taken is if someone can make a motion regarding the future agenda items. John, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and sharing your screen with the recommendations that you were noting down. I think that'll help whoever does make the motion capture all that information. Thank you, John. So it's just a matter of a motion, then we can put the 2 items to a vote and move on to agenda item 9.
Motion to adopt the agenda items as they appear on the screen.
Second.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, there are two motions that have been seconded on the table. The first is for reoccurring meetings, either the first or second Wednesday of each month from 1 to 4. And the second motion was to incorporate the future agenda items reflected on the screen. John, will you please put both of those items to a vote? One vote for both should suffice. Thank you. John, are you, there you go. Thank you.
So for both motions, Nikesh, do you need me to repeat them?
No, that's not necessary. Just putting them
Okay.
both to a vote. Thank you.
So for both motions, seat 8, Ali Jamalian.
Aye.
Seat 9, Aaron Flynn.
Aye.
Seat 10, Jessica Croy.
Aye.
Aye.
Seat 11, Doug Block.
Aye.
Seat 12, Sean Richard.
Aye.
Seat 13, Nina Parks.
Aye.
Seat 14, Brendan Halloran.
Aye.
Seat 15, Teresa Foglio Ramirez.
Aye.
Seat 16, Sarah Payan.
Aye.
Motion carries with 9 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions. Nikesh, you're muted.
It was only a matter of time. Thank you, John. So with that, agenda item 8 is closed. We move to agenda item 9. This is the general public comment. Ray, will you please open up the public comment section? Thank you.
Thanks, Nikesh. And sure thing. Once again, if members of the general public would like to provide public comment to this item, you may do so by putting your comment in the chat box or by calling 1-415-655-0001 and then input the access code, which is 187-983-9993, and then press *3 when prompted to do so. And with that, I do see one individual waiting to speak, and I'm going to unmute this individual. Hello, caller. Your 2 minutes starts.
Is this me again, Charlie? Yes, hello?
Yes, please proceed.
Yeah, Charlie again. I have some criticisms about I don't think the agenda went out till Friday. I think your agenda should be out at least 8 days before. And that way you could also encourage the public to submit, things 8 days before. And you should also encourage the public to submit stuff, before the meeting and distribute it at the meeting as late items. That works for us in Berkeley. And I think, you really need, for you to do your jobs the best, you really need to hear from as much public comment as possible. Also, it's disappointing, discussion about the bylaws. There were no bylaws in the agenda. Just mentioning that we're going to talk about the bylaws. There was no where do you go, where do you find the bylaws? You did mention that in your discussion. And I'm also unclear about the RDA. Do they help you do the agendas? I didn't even know who they were. So I just like a little more clarity, and please involve the public as much as you can. And it's a hard job. I salute your efforts completely. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Nikesh, I do not see any other members from the public waiting to speak, and I'm going to check the chat function now, and we do not have any submitted public comment.
Thank you, Ray. With that, the public comment portion is closed, and our meeting, well, before we adjourn, committee members, is there anything else that anyone would like to say before we adjourn the meeting? All right, not hearing anything.
Sorry, real quick, just
Sure.
a reminder for any materials. I'm not answering any questions, but I am just letting everybody know where you can access materials and how to call in and the agenda and everything is through the Office of Cannabis website. And it's posted, even our past ones from since we first started. So just so that you guys have the resources available so you're prepared ahead of time.
Thank you, Jessica. And I'd also like to add, please keep an eye on our Friday communications. We send out a lot of updates, a lot of important information, especially with the ordinance coming up, needing all of your support and certainly the community. Anyone who's watching today, please stay involved, continue to lean in, very important. And I want to thank Nikesh Patel for essentially chairing today's meeting. I thought you did a great job, and thank you to all the committee members for your patience as we do housekeeping for this first meeting. It will get more interesting, I promise, Chair Ali, shortly.
Thank you for that, Director Rodriguez. Committee members, you will not have to hear my voice next week or next month. I'm gladly passing that on to Ali. Chair Jamalian, the mantle is all yours. So with that, that adjourns today's meeting. Great job, everyone, and see everyone in about a month. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
You too, Sean.
All right.
And Ray, if you'd like to move us into a practice session, that's fine, but it may not be necessary at this point.
Sure thing. Let me do that anyway before I close.